All right, let's go ahead and get started. If Griff will get off the time.
Yeah, sorry.
All right, so I'm Woody Galloway of Galloway Law Group. I'm helping William Pappas, who is the applicant, go through the zoning process in Brookhaven. And as most of y'all know, we had a meeting. Some of y'all were here a couple of weeks ago. We had a meeting. It's the same meeting, it's the information meeting that you're required to have. We sent out all the notices and then found out that the mayor had a town hall meeting that night. So a lot of people couldn't be there, but wanted to be there. We were asked to do a second one, so that's what this is. If you were here last week, or 2 weeks ago, the material's gonna be the same. So what we're trying to do right now is to take all the comments from everybody, from the meeting last time, from the meeting tonight, and then distill those and come back with some changes to the plan to try to address comments that y'all raised. We certainly had a lot of comments last time, and we took very good notes to make sure that we, and Trey filmed it so that we have a digital recording of it. But basically what we're dealing with is the 2 acres in the southwest corner of Dresden and Appalachia. The westernmost portion is zoned O and I. The remainder of the tract is zoned R75. On the land use plan for mixed use development, what we are planning to do is consistent with the land use plan. PC2 is what the zoning category that we're going for on the property. It's a mixture of what we're asking for is a mixture of apartments and then retail, restaurant on the ground floor, 9,000 square feet of retail restaurant space on the ground floor. We will, what we will do is go through a short presentation on the proposal and then open it up for questions. We ask that you wait till the end, ask you questions. We'll go through one by one, address and answer the questions. And again, what we're trying to do is to get to the point where we get everybody's feedback initially, then go back and take those comments and try to distill them and then make some decisions on what we can give on, what we can't give on, and then come back with an alternate plan. In the midst of this, we're also doing a traffic study. We're working with the city, and as you know, there's another development that's being proposed on the north side of Dresden. So we've got a common traffic consultant, and he's going to work with the city, because the city's also working with MARTA and doing a traffic study for with ARC and Greta doing a traffic study of Dresden to try to work on the big picture issues of what needs to happen, because everybody knows we have significant traffic problem on Dresden, especially during peak hours. But there are also, other problems with lights and offsets of lights and different things that need to be addressed. I guess at this point, Greg, if you would just go through the plan and then we'll turn it over and ask questions.
Lots of familiar faces. Greg Power, Twilliger Pappas, one of the development partners on the Solus Dresden project. Solus Dresden is a 121 unit exclusive boutique city home project. City home, because we're trying to offer something very different than what's already built on Dresden and what's being proposed on Dresden. We're targeting not age restricted, but renters by choice, someone who's tired of the upkeep of their home, who still wants to stay in the neighborhood, still appreciates the walkability. Larger units, 1,200 square foot average units, not your typical 800 square foot unit that's geared towards the millennial. High-end finishes, gourmet kitchens, quartz countertops, hardwood floors throughout. We're also offering a lot of services, valet trash, dry cleaning, pet walking services, concierge services, to make this thing really feel like a condo. In fact, if you're here last meeting, we do see this being converted to a condo down the road. We are 3 stories of residential over retail and commercial space with an additional penthouse level step back 10 feet. Parking, we are 2 levels, 1 at grade, 1 below grade. We have access off Dresden and Appalachia. We are activating your street, anchored by our leasing center on this corner, commercial space anchored by a signature restaurant. We have 9,000 square feet of commercial space. Right now we're under letter of intent with a local restaurateur who owns Kaleidoscope to do a steakhouse concept, and then the remaining 4,000 square feet of commercial space we see as being shops and office. To the front here, you have a 40-foot right-of-way. You have a 15-foot setback on the west side of the property, 15 on the east, and then there's a 30-foot undisturbed required buffer, and we're giving 50 feet. So this is kind of our city home vision. So with that, we'll open it up. If anyone has any questions, any comments, or if you were here last meeting, you came up with a different idea.
What are they going to rent?
One thing before you start, Griff. We did, so one change from last week, or last time, is that we have delayed our hearing schedule, so we will not go forward in June, we will go forward in July. So the planning commission will be July 6th, and the city council July 26th. Based on the comments last time, it was clear that we needed additional time to try to work through these issues. So we chose to delay it so that we would have time to not only work on our side, but get back to everybody. Griff?
So 1,200 feet, these are going to be $2,500, $2,600 a month, $2?
Yeah, the average absolute rent is $2,300 a month.
Can you explain the parking again, the ingress, egress, please?
Yeah, so you have, parking is focused behind the retail on the first floor, behind the residential that goes to grade. So you have an access point off Dresden, you have an access point off of
Okay, are they allowed to
Appalachia.
go in and out of Dresden and in and out of Appalachia?
Dresden is a right in, right out. And then, as of right now, Appalachia is a full access.
But we're studying ways to try to minimize or eliminate the right-hand turn out of there.
Okay, because we're Village Park, and I'm the president of Village Park. And I'm also a real estate agent that specializes in condos for 20 years. So very interested in this. Couldn't come last week because we were getting our police academy. Thank you for Brookhaven Police Academy. So this is a really big deal to us, and I can speak for a few of my neighbors here. We have behind, between Appalachia and LJ, I would say, how many houses do we have there on your corner there? 12? Okay, how many kids on that street? 12?
More. 15 kids in the block.
Yeah, from Tom's house to
Under 10.
Stephanie's house. It's all kids, and there's no sidewalks. And we are already having, they put a 4-way stop sign in. And I think between that and the 5th story is where everybody's losing their minds. Okay, my biggest question is, okay, I've converted buildings before. Are you gonna build these to commercial condo standards, or are you gonna build them to apartment standards?
They're gonna be built in
I
condos.
mean, how many inches of concrete are gonna be in between each floor? I mean, this is where our architect buddy comes in, and, I mean, this is what's important to me. Because if it's gonna be a piece of crap in 5 years, I have a feeling that we'll all march in the courthouse steps. So that's kinda That's not really a question, that's just kind of how I feel. I just got out back into
And
town
we're
and played with
experienced
my
at condos
family,
too.
so.
I mean, we did the St. Regis Residences, we did Deluxe, we did One Bindings.
Okay, well, we sold Lux.
So we are,
Michelle Wing and Judy Howell
Right.
sold Lux.
we're very familiar with the
I sold the
condo space.
Borghese, I sold Tuscany, so I mean, I've done both.
I'm sorry, I'm Alan Dean with Twilliger Pappas as well.
Hi.
This absolutely is designed, the interior spec, interior finishes is nicer than what we did at Lux, nicer than what we did at One Findings Mountain. I will say, not as nice as St. Regis. That was a little outside the box
Obviously.
for what we, typically do. But what we specialize in is coming into neighborhoods and kind of, creating or establishing the fabric of that neighborhood and what fits in. And we feel like all the product particularly along Dresden, of the apartments and what have been built to date have been targeting a much different profile. I would say throughout Atlanta, it's the millennial, the smaller units, right? And so we feel like the empty nester, the older, I call it more sophisticated taste. More of a sophisticated clientele looking for a higher spec. So this absolutely is condo quality, but as you probably know, the financing markets for condos and building a condo, it doesn't exist right now.
How long
So,
do you have to keep it before you can flip it to condo?
How long do they want it?
5, is it a minimum of 5 years?
No, there's
Not a minimum.
no, there's no minimum. You have a,
Is there a tax benefit for
There's
you
a-
to keep it for a certain amount of time?
there's a tax benefit from a capital gains perspective to hold the property for 2 years from ordinary income versus capital gains. And we've done, as I said, we've done a bunch of,
Well, I
done a
love
bunch of
Lux. I
condos.
mean, I'm Coldwell Banker Midtown was my office
Right.
forever. I'm with Dorsey Allston now.
I hired Michelle
This
for that
looks-
deal for Lux, yeah, so that's,
Michelle Wing.
Yeah.
and Judy. It reminds me a little bit of what they did in downtown Decatur,
right.
but we're much smaller than that. So it looks to me,
And this is less
the
dense.
scale is off. It looks-
But this is less dense than downtown
So 121 units
I know.
is really, I usually cut the line at 150. Anything under 150 is tough to operate efficiently. And but we view this as such a special, such a
But you
special.
still have to get it rezoned to get it.
Oh, absolutely,
Get that
absolutely.
away.
But before we go on to the next question, I want to follow up with your traffic question. And that was a big issue that was raised last time we heard it. So those are things that we have asked our traffic consultant to consider when he's going forward, both the points of access and how to restrict access because of the concern about going back into the neighborhood. So I want to make sure that you realize that we are going to try to address that. Yes, sir.
You're going for PC2 zoning. And of all, I count 35 zoning categories in the city of Brookhaven. Only 4 of them, which are the PC 1, 2, 3, and NCD, have a statement that says, we trump any other code section, which would include the Brookhaven, the overlay. I cannot figure out why, and its requirements for filing are twice as long, 3 times as long as any other zoning category. I cannot figure out why you were going for such a comprehensively zoned category other than density. Because you are truly an apartment on top of a couple restaurants. It's not a grand mixed use piece, it's an apartment on top of a couple of restaurants. So, and there are other zoning categories that would allow you to do that underneath the overlay, that would still allow you to be mixed use.
Well, now, we are under the overlay regardless. But you can't you have to use the density. They don't look to the overlay for density, they look to the PC2 classification for density. So it gets a little bit confusing how they do it. But in terms of, are you a grand mixed use deal, we got 2 acres. So there's a limitation in terms of how many mixes you can have. We don't know how that 9,000 square feet is going to be allocated. We've got a letter of intent on half of it for restaurant, but if you look at what's happened in this area, you've got a mix of, on the first floor, retail, you've got a mix of retail uses, and then you have restaurants, scattered throughout. And that, I think, will be the pattern that we have here as well. But we do have a small piece of property that has limited amount of frontage.
How big?
Yes, we're gonna, I need to
I'm
go
sorry.
around and then we'll.
Do you have a backside rendering for a sketch?
Y'all
You had a
asked,
sketch
they
last
asked for it
time.
last time, and
Yes.
we will have that at our
It's
next.
on our, it's on our to-do list that we're working on, because that got brought up at the last meeting.
Do you have the sketch from last time?
This is, we brought the same boards from last
Yeah.
time.
We
Somebody
did-
showed us a sketch last time of the backside.
Oh,
There's an Appalachia elevation as well.
That's what I'm missing.
Depends on what you mean by backside.
Yeah, that's,
From the
it's
community
not,
side. We're looking-
it's not the backside, it's.
Yeah, this is
The
around
side.
Appalachia, this is
Appalachia.
Dresden. So this view is here, this view is here. So do not-
Just put it up on the
Yeah,
board
just put
for
it
a
up there on the
second.
board.
And what is the height of those wings that are coming down Appalachia?
5 floors.
The height, that's what feet.
Yeah.
The 85 feet,
69.
69 feet. And is that gonna be the same height along the wings in the back facing Canucci?
Yes, but the top floor still steps back, the 15 feet all the way on
Yeah,
Appalachia.
I would tell you the perceived height from the street, because of the way the top penthouse floor stepped back, is only 56 feet.
And what is gonna be in the buffer between the backside and the backyards on Canucci that on this property?
So we were proposing a, pocket park, basically.
So the first 30 feet is undisturbed, you're not allowed to touch that. So all the existing trees and everything would remain. And then the additional 20 feet would be a landscape zone, open space.
Did you mention a sidewalk as well last time?
Yes.
A public sidewalk for people
Yes.
walking?
Yes.
But the people along the backside of Canucci, they're basically gonna have a wall, right? I mean, they're looking at along the whole length of that,
Well, you'll have
backside.
50 feet of landscaping, 30 of which will be the existing, then 20 of it will be new plantings.
How tall is that landscape gonna be? That's,
Well, that's existing. The 30,
The first 30 feet is
The
literally.
trees that are there.
Trees are there, the natural growth, we're not allowed to touch it, disturb it, anything.
we can add to it if it's sparsely vegetated.
So the last meeting, just so we're all on the same page, last meeting, we heard you would rather us not give you the extra 20 feet in the back and take a floor off. So that's what we're studying right now.
That's the bonus for the fifth story is the extra 20 feet that they're saying can't touch.
The
Well,
sidewalk and.
No.
Not only that, but the step back of 10 feet for the top floor is required to get that top floor.
how high is that pole gonna be?
It's 10 feet up,
10 feet off the ground?
yes.
Okay,
So, right here will be, the first level here is parking. It's screened to look like a building, but it's only 1 story, so it's 10 feet. So really, with this growth, or with this undisturbed buffer, it will shield that first 10 feet.
Yes, sir.
How far is 50 feet relative to the existing structure there now, just so I have an idea?
The O and I
Adjacent
building, the office building, which is
Yeah.
the only structure that's over there,
Yeah.
we have to go to an area.
It's actually, the corner of that office building is right there.
So it's,
We're
basically
maybe
lines
5
up, so
feet.
20 feet forward would be quite a bit, so I only speak for one, but I personally would oppose moving it 20 feet towards my house right now.
So far away are we there? And how, what's that distance?
I'd say about 5 or 10 feet.
Yeah, what's the distance from here to here?
Oh, that's 50 feet.
So it's the same, it's the same
But
distance.
you're proposing eliminating 20 of those feet,
Yeah,
What we
no,
heard last
no.
time was
We're
the
just-
priority was to get rid of the 5th floor.
We're just researching.
That was one of the
possibilities.
suggestions.
One of the suggestions.
From the group.
So it's just, it goes in the mix as something, so you wouldn't support that. Other people have indicated that was something that they would like to look at. Yes, sir.
So going back to the question about the height, is your height measurement from existing grade or from street level?
Street level.
Street level.
Yes, sir.
A couple of things. One, just on that backside, on that undisturbed green space, where there is nothing behind that office building that you're saying, there are no trees except the trees on our property. So there is nothing. Will you
Then we would
plant-
be required to put back in landscaping. So we would need to work
We'd
through.
be putting it back, there's nothing there on that,
Well,
on
what
that
I'm
side
saying
of
is
the
we would
fence.
need to put, it's a 30-foot undisturbed buffer. You can't take anything out. You can put things back in, or you can put things in.
Sure, just bring things up, just to make sure they're all.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
So you had, no, you had a second one, you said you had two.
Yeah, I know. So how much of the 2 acres right now is zoned O and I? Whatever.
Probably a quarter of it.
Quarter of it.
Yeah. If you can see it, well, you see it.
It's 4 parcels.
The line is,
I'd say it's about a third of it.
it's, the line is right there. So it's probably, it probably is more like a third is zoned O and I, and 2/3 is zoned R75.
And my last one was about parking. I think that last meeting that you mentioned that there are 50 parking spaces for the retail.
Yeah, right now there's
For
214,
public, so-
160 for residential and 54
For employees, because by the time you've got 2 full restaurants there, and, big, large restaurant, you've got a bunch of employees for that, and 50 spaces, another thing, is not gonna cover what you're proposing in retail space and restaurants.
Well, we heard parking loud and clear last time. We're studying how to increase the number of parking spaces as well.
To add to that, so how many guest parking spaces will be in the complex, right? So complex retail, right, you've got people who are gonna come to visit their friends who are living there, right, where are they gonna park?
We provide 15 guest visitor spaces.
For 121 units.
Well, what's required is 1 per unit, which would be 121. You're providing 160 for that, plus the,
Are these a mixture of 1 bedroom and 2 bedrooms?
mixture of 1 and 2 bedrooms.
How many 1 bedrooms?
It's,
45.
yeah, it's roughly
And how many
55,
2 bedrooms?
45.
Okay, well, that's,
Yeah.
You don't have enough parking.
you don't have enough parking.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Of course.
Oh, we're gonna go in order now, okay, all right. I think you're developing the right product in terms of the units. Converting, it's gonna convert to a condo when the market drives it, whether that's 18, whatever. But as far as the square footage and the price point, I don't know, you can stake your flag. I think the biggest elephant in the room is the parking. And you take this restaurant, Joey opens up a steak restaurant, what we're really after is, do we have Freaknik going on, for those of you that remember? Do we now have it all the time? Climate down here in the evenings. And that's, you got as a community kind of say, where do we want to stake our flag? Is it the color of the building? Is it 5 feet height? I think the square footages on this is apropos. Certainly the target is not going to be 2 kids coming out of college running at what we have up and down here. I'm more concerned, and some might say I'm more concerned because I'm president of Brookhaven Township, and the development across the street will buffer our community. But we're apartmentized out, okay? And I'm almost more concerned about Conley's 206 units than the 106 here where the table's set for paperwork for a condo conversion when that's driven. And obviously it's gonna be engineered that way. My concern is, if I was opposing it, I'd be battling how much square footage is tolerable for retail and restaurant. That to me is the elephant in the room, the parking as it relates to that. But if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Terrible wrong.
We're just liquor licenses.
Okay.
Excuse me?
We'll assume to receive liquor licenses.
We will assume that,
Yeah,
sure.
assume that.
I mean, there aren't many real nice restaurants that can survive without that. Yes, sir.
You may have started to touch on something with the financing thing, but if the intent is to convert to condos, why the delay, and is there a path to some kind of out-of-the-gate mixed condo/apartment? I mean, I think, for a lot of us, there's a concern about the transient nature of apartments, right? I mean, I think that while I don't have data to suggest it, I've got a belief that apartments depreciate more so than home ownership, and so, in 4 or 5 years, what does the clientele look like as opposed to day one when it opens, right? Day one when it opens, high-end clientele, sounds great, love it for the neighborhood, but as rents, I would presume rents go down as apartments age, right? So what happens to that clientele? What happens to the people that are coming in and out of there? I don't have data, I'm asking a question as much as.
Yeah, the data actually, it goes exactly opposite of that, particularly in this post-recession we're coming out of. People actually prefer it's more the lifestyle renters, even on the high end. They'd rather rent, they'll go in and lease a condo versus having to go in and buy it, afraid of the depreciation in the prices of their condo, coming through, what we just came out of. But it depends on the type of product that you're building. I think, some of y'all have hit it. I mean, I think when you get down to it, you need to choose, okay, which development group, if there's gonna be development on the site, what type of development, what level of quality do you think fits the neighborhood, fits the, the area? And I would just argue to say we're building as high of a spec and a quality. And I kept saying, this level of finish is higher than what I've built, over $1 billion of condos in Atlanta. And this is as high, other than the St. Regis, this is as high of a quality for unit spec,
And then,
perspective.
And I don't know if I missed and I don't know how this works. Why a conversion? Why start with apartments as
You
opposed to
can't
just
finance
Just
apartments. You can't finance condos now because of how all the condos went bust during the recession. So you had Gallery that went bust. You had, you can just name 20 or 30 of them that
You literally have to have like 60% pre-sold.
and you can't get mortgages until you can't get, what do you call it, Freddie Mac? FHA financing until you have more than 50 or 60% sold. And so you just can't get financing.
So where's the confidence that a conversion would work then if all those other things are true?
We feel confident, I feel confident enough that this project will work in absence of a conversion. We feel like the pent-up demand for this type of a product in this area, and somebody that wants to be able to, lock and leave and have the low maintenance lifestyle, but still living in the city and having their city home. We feel very strongly. We're not relying on a condo conversion. It's one of our, you look at it from an exit, strategy. It's one that could happen, but I'm not building anything that I'm relying on being condo.
Well, with all due respect, at $2,600 for your rent, you're not getting rid of your cash cow anytime soon. But let's they're not going to get rid of their cash cow anytime soon. $2,600.
Well, but your cost per square foot is a lot higher, so it's not, cash cow is relative to how much you pay for it. Yes.
So I think I'm gonna use some of your words to frame this argument. When you talk about pent-up demand, if there's anywhere in Metro Atlanta that there is a pent-up demand for condos, we're looking at a neighborhood where houses are going between $799 and $899. And if there's pent-up demand for ownership of something at a more reasonable price, it's here. That's number one. Number two, if you talk about pre-selling 60% to be able to make that happen, I bet you that can happen. Because if you put it out there, there's enough pent-up demand for that to happen. And number three, if I were a buyer, last time you said you put Viking appliances in this thing and all that, I am not buying an apartment that had Viking appliances. Not gonna happen. If I'm gonna buy it, you're gonna have to give me new appliances. I'm not gonna buy an apartment that someone who had no ownership stake lived in and just kind of casually treated. It's very different from a condo. So you should explore a condo because you'll be the darling.
I've explored condos.
What about townhomes?
I've explored condos a
How many
lot.
townhomes can you put on 2 acres? I mean, for $600,000 a piece, they would sell. I mean,
It's better than the R75 zone.
But they did rezone what was up at the corner, this block, and they are putting 27 townhomes on that.
28.
at Apple Valley, right?
Yep, on Apple Valley.
So I mean, it certainly can be done.
Yeah, we said this last time, townhomes just from an economic standpoint, just doesn't make economic sense.
Well, why even the residential piece? Why not just do retail and restaurants? Why have the residential portion of it?
No, it's, land price is X.
Sure.
You have to justify the land price, or you have to, And so,
And you've certainly studied, I'm assuming, the vacancy rates going on in the apartment complexes around here,
Yes.
plus the MARTA development coming on.
yeah.
And that's one reason why having the option of condo conversion really makes sense.
You guys are pushing that, but there's no guarantee that you're gonna do a
No,
condo. Condo
right.
conversion sounds beautiful because it kind of gives all the neighbors hope that one day down the road, this is going to fulfill what we're looking for, right? Taxpayer extra money coming in, you know, ownership, but there's no legality and no structure behind you guys actually doing a condo conversion. So it just sounds like beautiful background noise and an elevator, but realistically, nobody actually needs it.
We still have class A+ product, high barriers to entry. I mean, and we're offering something that no one else has in a very.
That's
very
actually not
easy-
true, because when I first moved to Atlanta, there's a bunch of these. There's one in Vinings I looked at.
Yeah, but, you know,
So you're not
Brookhaven-
offering anything new, you're just offering it new in Brookhaven.
And Brookhaven. But it's different and yes.
Mr. Gallery, yeah, given the importance of local government decision-making in approving this, I'd like to ask you one question. How many conversations have you had with Councilman Madison since this application was filed?
Or the mayor.
Two.
One, to tell him that we were going to file it.
Right.
And secondly, when he asked me to look specifically at forming an alliance of, you know, neighborhoods, get representatives from different neighborhoods together to try to hammer out any discussions. We certainly have not had any discussions on, you know, what his opinion is and how he would go forward with it or vote or anything like that. Just normal discussions.
That's two more conversations that he's had with any homeowner that's on the backside of the property.
And where is he tonight? We were rescheduling so that people from the city could be here.
Right.
Right, where are they?
Right.
There's nobody.
John was in the last one.
Yeah, but he's not here.
John
Park,
Carter.
yeah. Who lives in Ashland?
One thing that I think would be terribly helpful is if you, on that Appalachia side elevation, would draw in, prior to the hearing, the scale of the house at 56.75 feet away, as typically as they're being built on there. Because I did the exercise, and it dwarfs the house. It dwarfs it. And I think one of the things beyond the traffic, which is the other big element in the room, I think that the scale and the massiveness of this building compared to the immediately contiguous lot is startling.
There's no
Typically out of
flow,
place.
there's no flow between what you're proposing and the neighborhood. Zero.
Never mind the fact, I mean, are there, I'm assuming there are windows on the back side, on the sides and on the back side? Like, if it's that high and my property's on the back, it's not, I'm just asking.
You can put it
out
on
of
the
my
top.
curiosity,
It's mine. Go
okay?
ahead.
Like, I'm suspecting that anyone on that back side would be able to look into your windows and on your, which
And our
I
kids,
think is very uncomfortable,
do we have kids in here?
quite frankly.
There's one. Kid back there.
At what point will you be ready to talk about the traffic? Because that's
Well,
critical.
what we've been asked to do is coordinate, have our traffic consultant is also gonna work on Conley and is also coordinating with the cities. The city is working on a master, traffic consultant, so I don't know the schedule. My understanding is that traffic study is supposed to be finished by at the end of May, but I don't know, so we have to find that out. Part of the reason why we got Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if y'all are required to do this, but I know in other places where I've lived, developers are required to fly balloons or have reader boards. Are y'all planning to do any of that before zoning? So that you can see
the height.
the height?
We're certainly not required to do it. Some people, sometimes, I've done them many times on cell towers. I've never done them for residential. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I wasn't here at the last meeting, so we might have covered this, but, so the target market is not parents with children, or are we anticipating that with 2-bedroom apartments that we're gonna get some families? Is there a number of children that you anticipate coming in that would then also be going into the crowded Ashford Park Elementary elementary school?
It would be certainly a low number, because you're talking about, more expensive houses.
Right.
You're also talking about 1 and 2 bedroom houses, or apartments. So typically, you're not gonna have, you might have some children in the 2 bedrooms, but not likely many, and then further downgraded by the fact that, how expensive it is.
Right.
So, yes?
Sorry. And
No,
then
keep
the
going.
other thing is that, I love Kaleidoscope and Haven and Valenza, but, I am a young family, and so we rarely go to eat at any of those places, which are within walking distance of me. I would love to see more casual type retail restaurants. Is that at odds, I guess, with the type of product that you're building though?
Well, the retail, what's on the ground floor will relate to what's above it,
Right.
in the sense. And going back to the comment you made earlier, one difference between the kind of apartments that are done now and the kind of garden apartments that were typically done for the last, 50 years, is that because you've got the ownership component for the ground floor retail, and you've got an association, you typically have much more emphasis on maintenance and keeping things high quality. The style of the restaurant, we haven't determined. We do have a letter of intent for a steak restaurant, so that would be a higher end restaurant. You got Vero that has, Monday night pizza night, that's whatever, 2 for 1. But I don't, at this point.
I think it's a good point, because we do a lot of mixed use. We actually embrace mixed use, where a lot of multifamily developers don't want any retail on the ground floor. We like it. It complicates it, but we feel like it's accretive to the deal. Our residents love it. We get higher rents because we have it. And I like to have the mix of uses from a restaurant perspective when we have the scale, appropriate to do it. So we've got a project, you can look up both Sharon Square and Charlotte that we've done, where we have a high-end restaurant on the corner. We've got kind of a family concept called Rusty Bucket out of Illinois that we put in there, which is much more of a casual family style. We have a wine bar over adjacent to. So I like having the mix. The restaurant mix is most important to our residents, because that's what they can use it from an amenity perspective. That's much better than a boutique, boutique woman shop or something, some kind of typical boutique retail store. So we focus a lot on the restaurant component, because we feel like that's an amenity.
Where would they would have to have valet, I'm assuming. Where are those valet cars going to park?
You would pull in,
And they would- and how
into the
many-
motor court internal to ours.
And how many parking spaces in that building?
In our building?
In your building?
214.
214. And how many are designated for the homes?
Currently 54. Oh, 160 for the home.
So each 2-bedroom home is not gonna get 2 parking spaces?
Not right now.
No, the two-bedroom homes are.
They will all.
2 bedrooms are good.
Parking is allocated 1 per bedroom.
Yeah, that's what I was checking.
Right, yeah, exactly.
That won't work.
And then on top of it is the 54 that we're talking about, that we heard loud and clear last time, and
So that's 54 people going in that restaurant at one time. We already have all this
Plus
bottleneck.
employees, visitors to the.
And
We heard that last time, so we are attempting to address that. Yes, sir.
With regards to that pool, you said the pool was 10 feet off the ground?
Yes, so
And so the building above
amenity
that
deck
was
is
3 sides. How far high up around that pool did it go?
so 56 minus
4
10,
stories.
46.
4 stories. Is there any kind of mechanism for mitigating the sound that's going to come out of that?
That's just gonna reverberate.
So megaphone.
Is there a wall on the back side of that pool, like
Yes, there's a screen wall.
no, a wall, solid wall?
Well,
There's a handrail, guardrail height parapet.
Oh, that'll help sound a lot.
Okay, that's a good idea. I mean, that's come out.
That's something we could look at.
Even if you could put a natural planted screen at the edge of the pool, I mean, if it's for the amenity of the residents to have some kind of greenery that they look out on, if you could do something on the deck itself.
Sure.
Which would help mitigate sound coming out.
Right.
And give them more privacy as well.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Yes,
Talk,
sir.
talk to us about the other apartments down Dresden. I understand they tried to put retail there, but they couldn't find the financing. Why is this project different? Is it because of the
Well,
fifth floor?
I mean, they don't do a lot of multi-family, they don't do a lot of mixed-use deals.
Okay.
So, I mean, a lot of their deals, they prefer not to have retail, so they would be, and I know their financing sources are a lot of the same financing sources I've worked with in the past, and they prefer to keep it pure residential, pure multifamily, don't quote complicate it by having retail on the ground floor. So it's more of a merchant build type model.
So it's the leader. You're experienced in this, so you're.
We feel, like as I said earlier, we embrace the mixed use
Okay.
component of it. So we feel like we get higher rents because we have the restaurants on the ground floor and walkability and.
So losing the fifth floor won't necessarily translate in losing the retail.
It won't translate. It's guaranteed not to.
Okay. Okay.
Because and that's something we're studying is what we could do to mitigate the height. But under the PC ordinance, there's a ratio of square footage of non-residential to residential.
Okay.
So you have to meet that ratio to fall under that classification.
Okay.
I'm sure you've done the math to get potential financing, but what is the square foot rental? Per square foot rental for the residences?
No, for the retail.
Well, it'd be
We're at $2.15 a foot on the residential.
What about the retail?
On the
Because
retail,
we're-
on the retail, we're just under $40 a foot currently on
Yes, ma'am.
Will you consider at all true mixed use, what the spirit of the overlay was for, where there's restaurants on the bottom or commercial on the bottom, the live work, office type things above that, because we're in need for the office space also, and then have the condos on top, or is that just totally off the table with what you could possibly do with this property based on the investment you're willing to make?
We've had some interest from the commercial side. I think we talked about this last time. We've had some office interest. We've been obviously focused on, as I said earlier, we're at 121 residential units now, which is right on the very bottom of what we can get done from a flat, from a financing standpoint or an operational efficiency standpoint of operating a multifamily deal. So it complicates it. But we're certainly open to having a mix of uses on the ground plane, whether it be in restaurant, office.
I'm just having a hard time with the financing aspect of all the research I've done, and that's what I did. I own the mortgage company and stuff, so.
But if you really want to have a hard time financing, then add another layer in the middle.
Well, if
That'll
the
really have a tough
ownership,
time.
and that, like we said, if you do the price point right, and the FHA financing, and I offered before, I'll help get the approval, the condo approval, but they'll be sold before you break ground, and you'll have no problem meeting those ratios. And that's where I get a little concerned about if that helps you or not with some of the financing options that could be available.
Right. No, I appreciate it.
As a company, are you just apartment sort of people with a little bit of mixed use in it, a little retail in it? Or, so is all the discussions that we've had about other uses that you could possibly put in there, are they just off the table because it's not what you guys do?
No, I'll give you for instance, like we talked last time how we're doing the deal up, actually with JR Connolly right up the street, the Solis Parkview deal, the old Great Gatsby site, where it's it's true mixed use. We've got office in there, we've got 30,000 feet of retail in that project. So it's 3 different uses. We're doing, go down to Buckhead Plaza site where St. Regis is, and where the Flywheel and the surface parking lot right there. We're doing a true mixed use, actually 4 different components: office, hotel, residential, and retail. retail, all on that last 4 acres. And I actually developed that developed from the Ovation condominiums to the St. Regis. We were the GC on 2 Buckhead Plaza. And this is kind of our last, I think I've spent 15 years working on that particular site. So we've done a lot of what people think of us, are you just an apartment guy? No, we do a lot of different uses depending on the neighborhood and the site, the quality of the site, and what we think is appropriate. For that neighborhood.
Pappas too.
Peter Pappas, so the Twilliger Pappas aspect of it. Peter Pappas is out of Charlotte, who's a renowned mixed-use developer. If you're familiar with ULI, real estate organization, he's just, has won award after award for doing these really, Burkdale Village up in the Carolinas, and as I mentioned earlier, Sharon Square, Metropolitan, really large, complex, mix of uses, restaurants, retail. His placemaking is he's won a lot of awards doing that. So we're much more than, just an apartment developer.
Does any of those back up to single family homes? Some of the types of developments, in this city, and that's kind of a big overarching thing.
So we just opened up a project over in Brookhaven, right next to, right down from OK Cafe. So if you're next to like Arthur Blake's home office, down Downwood Circle. So you sold the Borghese. So we did Solis Downwood, which we just got our CEO on 2 weeks ago, I guess. But we back up to, I worked with the MPUC and the residences and, Margaret.
Talking behind, on
That was
Howell Mill?
Yeah, off of Howell Mill, exactly.
Sure.
So that's
I
actually encourage, if you want to look at the type of, the quality, the type of product that we're building, and that's here locally. We just turned it. I'd love to take you on a tour, walk around.
Transition and buffer.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the name of it?
Solis is our brand name for our company. All of our deals are Solis whatever. So that's Solis Downwood.
A couple things. One, can you talk about when we're finished, what the buffer between your development and the homes at that location are? Is it a bigger buffer? Is it smaller? Is it natural? Whatever. But a couple things. I think you're starting to realize that the reason that our neighborhood is so desirable by you and JR and everyone else that's trying to cram apartments in here is because we've been fighting for a long time to protect the fact that this is a neighborhood. And through the recession, our home values stable, more stable than anybody else in the area. So, we have a lot at stake here. Two, we keep hearing that, these are going to go to condos, these are going to be really, luxury and all that, and that's great. But what can you do to help us mitigate the fact that someone's going to come in tomorrow, if you get the zoning, and say, we're going to buy out that street like they just did over on Peachtree Dunwoody, and we're going to put up more apartments? What can you do to help us mitigate that from happening?
Where are you talking about that happening? 'Cause-
Next to the Ronald McDonald home, I think it's 33 homes, they just bought out the entire neighborhood. They're gonna put a mixed use.
Oh,
of it.
in Sandy Springs, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
very familiar with that. But, all right, so the difference there, the land use plan there does not allow that use. Whether Sandy Springs chooses to change the land use plan.
But you'll
is-
become a precedent.
You'll be the precedent of a 5-story apartment complex, whether you want to or not.
Well, and we're gonna work through all of our issues. What we'd like to do is sit down and work through those issues. But from a precedent standpoint, one of the things that we do is completely comply with the land use plan. So if you're worried about that happening here, then the land use plan only goes so deep off of Dresden in terms of recommending the mixed use type. So it's a very linear approach. It doesn't go back deep into the neighborhood. I don't think there's any interest by city council to go beyond the limits of the land use plan's recommendation.
Well, and I get that, but I guess I also, to Terrell's point, where she is, when we had Brookhaven, or Dresden Village come in, we were told, this is not going to get out of hand. We're gonna have 1-story retail, office, townhomes. It's gonna be in one block, it's never gonna go in further deep. And then we've got these apartments, we've got you guys coming in, we've got JR coming in, we've got Marta coming in. And as much as you say that this won't be a precedent, if you're coming in on a precedent that these two buildings exist.
You can see it right in front of that, it looks ridiculous.
We're coming in based on the land use plan that's been in existence for a while. If we were going deeper into the neighborhood, beyond where the land use plan stops, then you would have a much better argument in terms of what the precedent we are setting. Because we're following the land use plan's recommendation.
Well, I know you guys are trying to be good neighbors, and we're gonna try to be good neighbors too. But that fifth story is really aggravating us. The parking is really aggravating us. The fact that we are no transition from 5-story buildings to single-story homes, like 2-story homes, that is a big issue. If you can solve those, these people and everyone else that's here will probably be a lot more friendly.
Well, and add to that traffic. So
And that's what we're
those are 4 of the main items that we've identified and are actively looking at. So I promise you, we're going to look at those. Whether we solve it to everybody's satisfaction is a different story, but we're going to try, and we hope that y'all will engage with us in that process and try to work, because clearly this property is going to be developed. So, take the time, engage with us, see what we can do.
We all want it developed,
And
we just want it developed smart.
Yeah, and I think that's all we can ask for, is will you work with us, try to work to a solution. If it's a solution that they can't do, then it won't work. If it's a solution that, anyway, we're gonna do everything we can to work things out. Yes?
I don't have a problem with the 5th story, it's that 4th story. So if you just cut out the 4th story and then drop that.
Yeah. Keep it set back.
She's probably a lawyer too.
4th story. We like just a plain old speech.
Yes.
Having lived in Buckhead Plaza and Town Brookhaven and Alexa Buckhead and all these other places many years ago, I see retail that succeeds and I see retail that fails, and it can make a street in a neighborhood or development look like crap, or it can make it look fantastic. How do you plan to address that issue?
Well, I think the way we're addressing it right now is we're going out and we're getting local restaurant who knows the neighborhood, who knows the community, because it's got a successful restaurant directly across the street.
It's a bar. It's a bar. It's not, I worked there for a year and a half. I've known Joey forever.
Well, let's be the other way around.
Yeah, it is not a sit-down restaurant. It is a bar. It's open until 2, 3 in the morning. Haven closes at 10, Vero closes at 10, Valenza closes at 10. That faces Savvy, this is in our front yards. And it is really, how you make that?
I get it.
I think the
I'm going to the bar,
opportunity
that's
to do
why.
the retail, and you have it's a great point. I mean, I spent, 15 years as a quote merchant builder, building apartments where I was, focused on the apartment side of it, and we weren't as focused on the retail side, quite just very simply. We'd have the city would make us come in and add 5,000 feet of retail, and it was almost an afterthought. And that was, 15 years ago. And so I understand the difference in what we're proposing and what's been built down the street here, because they never had any intention to do any retail. And so we start with the retail. We feel like the placemaking is where we start. The energy, and that's how we got to, obviously the St. Regis. You listed a couple of deals that I developed. Alexa and Buckhead. Perfect example of how the retail did not go as well.
Failed miserably.
Well, I can give you more story behind that, but
I knew the guy that owned the restaurant down there.
The AFC
The
stuff.
first,
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
And it was never set up properly for parking, it was never set up right for street walking.
Right.
Well, if anybody lived there for street walking, or if it was the right development for that, it would have been.
Right, that was pioneering at the time as well.
Yeah.
This is certainly in pioneering. I view the retail across the street, and I look at the storefront, and I see so much improvement. that could be made. And I feel like we have such an opportunity to create a really special retail storefront environment where the pedestrians are gonna wanna be on our side of Dresden.
I mean, that works. You know,
Yeah.
town Brookhaven is 50% occupied,
Yeah.
minus the restaurants they closed for other obvious reasons. Unless
Right.
Buckhead died. Minus the
Town
records.
Brookhaven, though, you almost have to hand it to them for being so patient, because they delivered in just the height of the recession. So they lost Whole Foods, they lost it was Virginia Highlands beats Brookhaven, right? Murphy's, all the restaurants that were coming in,
Right.
21 restaurants were coming into town Brookhaven that were authentic, local. I still have the list, because I did the first apartment coming out of the tumbleweeds when nobody else signed up, so, I know way too much detail on that development.
And those that all open, the parking would be a more bigger disaster, I think.
Yeah.
Do you consider town Brookhaven a successful development?
Well, no, what I said, it was, I feel like they
It
got.
did take forever, we know it
They
was
got
recession.
just crushed by the downturn, and there are some deals that some of the deals I've been most proud of that I did, like Lux down in Midtown.
Well, yeah, but Lux is a beautiful little
Right.
boutique building with no,
You know what,
on the
town
park with
Brookhaven
no
was
retail.
way more financially successful than Lux was. Kind of, well, I'm very proud of Lux. It
Yeah.
was authentic but when you hit that, I mean, that, as we all know, coming out
Do
of.
you own the land? Do you own those 4 acres, or are you?
These are,
These 2 acres?
no, we do not.
You do not own it yet?
Yeah, so that's why, it's one of the, that's one of the
This is
biggest
so-
issues is that
Are
we,
you gonna buy that
we
land
we have to.
if you can't get this, if you don't get the zoning,
No.
you're not gonna buy it, right? Somebody else is gonna come in here and do
I'm
something
not
else,
gonna buy
right?
it.
Bob should do it based on his own.
Right.
All right, yes, sir.
All right, all right, is there wine served yet? I gotta go, I can't take it. I've been on a plane, it's been a pleasure, I'll give you my card.
So we're gonna, yeah, she's here.
We're gonna sort of all
I've had enough of it originally.
Thank you.
There you
Quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you might have addressed this the last time.
It doesn't
that I
matter,
was
this is a
here.
new
Okay.
meeting, this is for people that weren't here last time.
So one of the things that I was, I live on the other side, so I live over behind Kaleidoscope.
Okay.
All right, and one of the things that's lovely about Kaleidoscope is they have a huge deck, which is really fun if you're going to Kaleidoscope. But if you're living in the neighborhood or trying to make that turn in around the deck, which is something I have to do to get to my house, it's a huge issue. There are people crossing the street, the valet is right there, even though they're not supposed to pull up cars right on Caldwell, they do anyway. And like, the police can't be the boss of them 24/7, they can't do it. So what I'm wondering with all that context is how much of this is actually gonna be outside dining? I'm assuming there's gonna be some, because there's gotta be some, otherwise nobody would go in the spring.
What, go to the rendering. I mean, we're really
I can't tell.
we're targeting this
Sorry.
corner. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I want Greg to just point that, yeah.
Yeah, about 800 square feet of outdoor dining, which,
So it's
like
gonna be
Kaleidoscope
considered-
has almost triple that.
But that's
Um,
still a lot, right? I mean, it's going to create the same, I would assume, issues.
Well, I think you would look more as the actual restaurant range, like you guys said, that was more of a bar atmosphere, a little bit more vibrant, and, you know, currently the concept is a little higher end steakhouse.
Well, Haven's high-end, and they have a patio that gets quite noisy. They have bands, and they have, you know, a healthy night.
The one thing we are doing,
Right.
we're focusing that towards Dresden, we're keeping that off of, like, this outdoor dining is not turning and going down Appalachian.
So it would be opposite Havens. Actually, Havens is on the, sort of on the back side, they don't go all the way up to the front.
I can
And
Brookhaven from my house.
Yeah, I understand, and those are things, you know, as we go down the list of all the things that you can do, there are different things that, you know, in terms of conditions of zoning, that if we get to the point where we get support for this, that we can work out conditions of zoning to detail things that are objectionable. Yes, ma'am.
When do you anticipate coming back to us with your proposed solutions to all of these things that have been raised that you say you're going to study?
Well, we want to find out about the traffic, because that's one of the biggest issues, Okay, so that's gonna be very dependent on when the traffic people come back.
Is there a
But-
due date for them to provide those?
Our understanding is the end of May, but that we don't know for sure. But we need to be meeting towards, in the next 2 to 3 weeks, come back with some solutions. So somewhere between 2 weeks to 4 weeks, we'll have another meeting.
And it'll be right back here, and we'll send out.
So did Joe Bailey or the other place?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Question for you. How are you gonna assure these very nice restaurants are gonna do what they say they're gonna do and do that? Or we're gonna have, like we did the last time, 7 in the morning, a Bobcat concrete the sidewalks for parkings?
Well, you know what,
You people might not know that.
anything that,
It was
so
there.
I'm the attorney charged with, you know, writing all this stuff up. So anything that we commit to, we'll commit to in writing and put it as conditions that will be enforceable by the city. So anything that we commit to will be enforceable by the city, so that, you know, whether it's, you know, some specific hour operation or whatever, amount of trees or the setbacks and all those kind of things will be set forth in the documents that are approved by this.
The last time we had the sidewalk concrete 7:30 in the morning.
I don't know what the hours of operation for construction are in
How can I
Brookhaven.
put the concrete on the sidewalk
I
7
get-
in the morning?
I get you. So I don't know what they are in Brookhaven, but we can work through those issues and put them in
It
writing.
was done by the time the offices of the Cap County were open. Concrete was there.
Well, but if even if they can still be cited. The lady,
Me?
you.
Okay, a couple of questions. Last time, or earlier tonight, I think you said you were also working with the people from across the street in the city on the traffic study. Is that what you said? You guys are?
We just happen to share the same traffic consultant.
Okay, well, at the meeting that they did, we found out something very interesting. One day in, let's see, it was a Tuesday, Wednesday to Thursday, one day 1 month, one day the next month, one day the third month. And it was done from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m., which they seem to be our prime traffic area. JJ, who lives here, because that's not true. So singularly unimpressed with that. But beyond that, what does this tell us anyway? Because the best we can hope for is that you make it a no right turn coming off of the Appalachian. But other than that, what would the traffic study do for us anyway at this point?
Well, in terms of what we heard last time and a little bit earlier tonight is effect on the neighborhood and what we can do, you know, to restrict any impacts on the neighborhood.
Mitigate, cut through traffic.
So really, we're talking about whether it's a right turn only.
No, I mean,
Appalachian.
mitigate, cut through traffic throughout the neighborhood.
It may influence which way the curb cut goes on Dresden.
Limit
whether it's
access.
Right out only or two-way access. It may influence
Full
whether there's
access.
parallel parking on Dresden, in
Traffic
addition to
signals.
what's there today.
Yeah.
This is just a little bit of fun. I don't wanna take any more of that 50 feet away between my house and what you want, but, you know that pool? Boy, that'd be nice if we had access.
They have 121 units.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
I had 2 questions. One, are you guys just built, like, do you operate, like, do you hold properties for duration, or you typically?
It's
strategy?
a great question, and we have between Ron Twilliger and Peter Pappas, our senior partners, you know, they have we've had buildings that we've built and we've sold due to primarily due to our financial partner at the time, who had their, you know, a lot of times it depends on our financial partners' hold term horizon. And so what's really happening in the environment right now is you have a lot more folks who are wanting these more longer term holds, which fits actually with Ron and Peter's estate planning visions, and so they want to hold long term. So it really ends up being asset by asset, and you know, is it a institutional grade partner who's in with us, and are they representing a merchant fund who wants to kind of get in, get out, get their IRR between year 3 and 5, or is it a,
What would you say your core business is?
we're probably, right now, we're 50-50 on our investors and whether they're a short-term, short-term I define as a 3 to 5 years, long-term 7 to 10.
And just a separate, sorry, your traffic consultant, if you'll allow the cynical me to come out for 1 minute, he works for you guys, the traffic
We
consultant?
didn't realize he was working for the other guys until a few weeks ago.
Well, that actually makes me even more concerned, because now the same guy's being funded by 2 different parties that both have the same interest. So who's looking out for the interest of?
Well, but the city is also, the city's doing, MARTA, ARC, Greta is doing an overall look at the Dresden Drive corridor. And the city engineer evaluates whatever traffic studies are turned in and done. And one of the things that drove us to defer was to have an adequate amount of time to really do a good traffic study to look at the issues, because and it's helpful in the sense that one of the things that came up last time was, okay, so you're saying you're going to do a traffic study, but we got other developments that are coming in, and are you going to anticipate the levels of service that they're going, the demands they're going to put on the infrastructure? Are you going to look at it comprehensively? And this will make it be a more comprehensive look at it, because ours will deal with our end, theirs will deal with their end, and then you got the city that's dealing with the overall end, and they have to mesh. And the city engineer, their charge is to make sure that the data is being looked at in accordance with engineering standards. Yes, sir.
Just, is your trash pickup down the bottom right corner?
Yes.
So,
Yeah, that's the only way.
It's north of that curb cut, but it's on that edge.
Yeah. But it's in.
I think what he was meaning was.
Beep, beep.
What was it, 531? It's a.
But it's interior to the deck. Yeah, you haven't had as many questions, so go ahead.
Well, I just want to follow up on the traffic thing, because what I understood from the meeting we had with the other developers across the street was that really in the end, the traffic study is more to give you guys better information about where to do best curb cuts for your development. That's great. But in the end, it really doesn't do a whole lot for the neighborhood in the sense that, and correct me if I'm wrong, because this was what I took away from what they said. Every developer is, as they come in, they're allowed to increase, they can say, well, we're going to increase it by 78 cars, was I think what they said. And they said that adds X number of seconds to the delay that you already have. So it's an incremental effect. Every developer comes in and they get X number of seconds of delay. Did I understand that?
No, this is a
correctly?
comprehensive recommendation.
Yeah, and that's incorrect. I mean, basically what they were saying though is that when you look at, when somebody comes in and does a traffic study, they look at the traffic generation from that particular use. And if your trip generation, you end up having to develop a level of service for each intersection that you are required to study. And so if you degrade a level of service beyond a certain point, then it necessitates improvement to that intersection, because they require the end result to be a certain level of service. So all that, there's a lot of computations that go into that. There's background, background growth.
2 lanes road there. So I mean, it's sort of
Yeah.
hard to say what would be improved.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of discussions about lights and timings of light signalization, lining up lights that currently aren't lined up. As y'all know, right next to Kaleidoscope, you got that offset. There's a concept of potentially adding a lane or adding intersection improvements. There are a lot of things that are being looked at, and y'all know this better than I do. I'm over here a lot, but peak hour, you've got an awful lot of people that are heading from Peachtree that are headed to 85, and so you've got a lot of.
I think that's fair to say anything.
What's that?
I know that we keep saying that, well, it's not our traffic, it's other traffic. Well, our neighbors are going out and going to their jobs and coming home too.
Sure.
So I think that happens in any, I mean, I know that it would be great to say it's not our fault that all the traffic goes from Brookhaven comes from somewhere else and is going somewhere else. But in truth, it's the same everywhere, isn't it? Somebody's trying to get from point A to point B.
It really depends on where
Peachtree
the
Road is a
development.
thoroughfare.
Yeah,
It is,
sure.
so is Beaufort Highway. But beyond that, when we're talking about the congestion within the neighborhood itself, I mean,
You just happen to be, you only got so many ways you can get from.
2-lane roads.
From Peachtree over to 85 or to the highway.
Can we make Peachtree a toll road?
Yeah.
Make it a non-resident toll road?
There you go.
Or Dresden.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Paid by the residents, of course.
Clarify, you mentioned that you would have to get the zoning contingent, closing is contingent on the rezoning?
Yes.
You actually have a clause in it, the sales contract and stuff, right?
Yes.
And that is about 80% to 95% of zoning go like that. So, I mean, almost, because there's a zoning risk that's associated, so if you buy it ahead of time and you're buying it not zoned, then if you don't, these guys have a vision for this property. If that doesn't get approved, then the next guy's gonna come in and he's gonna have a different vision for the property. It may be better for you, it may be worse. You talk to a lot of people, you talk to where, Lake Hearn, where all of Hewlett Packard is. That originally was slated for townhouses. Now it's, a huge multi-family, mixed-use development with tremendous densities. It depends. The neighborhood fought the townhomes and they ended up with something totally different that's much more dense. But, it can go the other way. It can go the other way too, so, yes, sir.
I just have a question about the specifics at the rear. As it was already pointed out, the density of the existing trees isn't as pictured there, so likely landscaping will be required. Do you know the height of those trees that they'd be able to bring in? Because as you can imagine from that front picture there, if that was the back and your house was staring at that, those little trees aren't going to do a whole lot. And it also mentioned a fence, at least in some of these drawings. Do you know what kind of fence that is? Is it like a chain link fence of some sort, or?
I mean, fencing would be a decorative aluminum.
Okay.
Split rail.
Okay.
And that, all that's subject to negotiation too, so.
Yeah. And then the trees would be the biggest, this is a buffer. We want to put trees that are a buffer. So we would put, large trees, obviously you can't go out and buy a 40-foot tree.
But those can all be negotiated too. I mean, that's all part of the.
Maybe a Leland cypress on the property line would serve you best as a buffer because it's closer to your house and provides a steeper angle incline.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So I remember that you noticed, and I can see it on this, rendering, that your property is deeper than like the Haven Valenza property, and it has room behind it, like, why couldn't you consider a row of townhomes at the back of that, move your pool and cabana up a little to the middle, and, not have just 5 stories to my house? Why couldn't you have?
You have to walk further to your pool if we did that.
So you did give access.
I'll take a middle notes.
I know, it's a good point, and it is something we're absolutely.
We're studying the transitional nature of
I mean, you kind
the
of, you can
uses
just
of.
see it right on, that there's room to do it.
So those are all things we.
Wait, help me understand, you're just saying close off the.
She's saying, if
Yeah.
you did townhomes along the back,
Like,
so that's
yeah,
something that
cut
we
those
can look
wings
at.
off
We
a
will.
little bit.
Which would close it off, which may be a
And-
benefit.
And give a transition
Where it's not
height.
choice.
And take care of the sound.
Right.
And give ownership within, which is one of the things we really would like to see.
All right, so let's do this. Let's go, let's have a couple more questions and then we'll stick around, but we're losing people. Yes, sir.
So last discussion about infrastructure with traffic. What about other infrastructure like sewer? So is there any studies in terms of, now all of a sudden we're going to this hugely dense corner of Dresden, and there's going to be, 120 toilets or more flushing rather than just, what was originally spec'd out for probably just 50.
Yeah, so all storm is detained on site. filter through water quality, so it goes back to the retention system. And then sanitary connects at Appalachia, and then feeds back into Dresden. Will have to be upgraded,
Okay.
just that section, which then of course, we would do that
So
upgrade.
Dresden is able to take the extra input, if you will, for output, I should say.
Capacity, yes.
Flow.
The flow. So everyone can assume that Appalachia is going to be dug up and there might be detours because of construction.
At some point, there will be, but most of that stuff is done, an awful lot of it is done tunneling, so.
Okay.
All right, we will stick around for a few minutes. Anybody else has questions? But thank you very much for your time and coming.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to let my doctor.
Hey, Woody Galloway.